Good afternoon, YouTubers. This is me, Little Richard 1988, and today is Tuesday the 26th of May 2026, and it's almost coming up for 10 past 3 PM as of filming. In fact, it's 8 minutes past 3 right now in the afternoon, but I'm not sure when this will be uploaded. But today I thought I would take you down on a trip down memory lane and talk about songs from around the world, and later I'll talk about this one which just arrived in the post today. But here we go, songs from around the world. Now it's about 30 years ago since I first got songs from around the world, and the story of how I got this cassette, the original copy of this cassette, was one time when me and my family were visiting an acquaintance in Coombe in Truro, and Coombe is actually on the opposite side of Boscawen Park, but yes, and I think my acquaintance had got married and they were in their partner's house, but okay. But then yes, we also went out for a trip into Truro with my family and our acquaintance, and we had an early learning centre in Truro, which is now a pet shop. But I went and looking now, and I remember finding this cassette, Songs from Around the World. So it was around Whitsun, so it's about 30 years ago since I first bought a copy of this cassette, Songs from Around the World. Now, obviously the original copy would have been a white cassette, although later editions do have clear plastic ones. But anyway, so yes, now, this was slightly different to other CRS Records cassettes I'd had. Do excuse some of the noise out there, my neighbours are having some paving slabs laid down. Okay, so these are 23 songs from 20 countries, and the cassette was actually sold in aid, or 40p from the sale of this cassette went to the charity Save the Children. So this was sort of done for charity. So yes, got 23 songs from 20 countries. Starting with She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain, which everyone knows. And then there are a few new songs that I'd never heard before, like White Calypso, La Cucaracha, and yeah, a few well-known ones like Bobby Shafto and Yellow Bird. I think I'd been introduced to that when I heard that on that Singing in the Band cassette, sung as part of the Playmar melody by do excuse me, Lola Benjamin. So I think that was around about the same time, maybe even shortly after I got this cassette. Can't remember which version of Yellow Bird I heard first. Kookaburra, I remember hearing that on the BBC Schools cassette. A lot of people don't know this, but Kookaburra is actually copyrighted. It's actually owned by Larrikin Music, or Larrikin Records, because Men at Work, they actually used the flute riff, which referenced half of the song Kookaburra, and then when it came up on a game show, they decided to sue Men at Work, even though they recorded it under a record label, so technically the record label. But I think that was all foul play, because a lot of people don't know it, but yeah, that was foul play in my opinion. In fact, Kookaburra is actually only goes back as far as the 1930s. It was written by Marion Sinclair as a sort of scout song, although I thought it was older, but no, it's only been around since the 1930s. But a lot of people assume it's public domain, but unfortunately it isn't. It's not going to be public domain probably at least for another 50 or so years. Mexican Hat Dance, I actually remember hearing the instrumental of that on BBC Number Time, and Little Green Frog's another one I didn't know, and Banyan Tree, Click Goes the Shears. Cockles and Mussels, I think that might have been, we may have sung that in a school recital. Cockles and Mussels, that's one of my favourite songs. Kumbaya, I remember us singing that in school, in assembly at school. It's actually hymn number 68 in common praise, but I'm pretty sure that's public domain. And Sleigh Ride is a folk song from Russia. It's not the Christmas song by Leroy Anderson, not to be confused with the Sponge Fishing. That was another new one. My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, I think everybody knows that. In the Paddy Fields actually is also known as Treading the Water Wheel. And Polly Wolly Doodle, which is an American song. This was the first time I'd heard it. So, and you also have all the words on the inner sleeve, which is quite handy. To sing along to. CRS Records always likes to make their music as easy to sing along to as possible. This is ideal for Prime. In fact, shortly after I got this cassette, I actually remember taking this to Briggs School and playing it. And one of my friends had that party cassette with the medley, with the disco medley with Green Grow Rushes O, and One Man Went to Mow, which was sung Music Man, sung by Lisa Abbott. That was a CYP one. I remember that at the birthday party as well. But shortly after, I actually bought this cassette in, and everyone recognised Mexican Hand Dance from the Number Time, El Nombre, and Kumbaya. Now, one other thing that surprised me with this cassette is that the songs on here are all sung by kids. They aren't sung by like Phil Waddington and Alison Chard, like most of the other CRS Records releases I'd heard up until that point. I think this was one of the first CRS Records cassettes I'd actually heard songs sung by children. And yes, Youth in Harmony Choir, I think that's where vocalists like Kate Crossley, Stephanie and Kerry Whiteside and Jane Wilkinson. I think one of Phil Waddington's kids was also in that choir, and then a couple of schools in the area also sung on the tracks. I can quite easily tell which ones were sung by the top group of vocals, because I recognise some of the voices. And I think this was actually recorded, I'm not sure whether or not these vocals were recorded in Michael Ratcliffe's bungalow or whether they hired a studio. But another interesting thing is that turns out some of the backing tracks are from the original 1991 CRS release, like Work Calypso and Banyan Tree. Back then the bar was quite low for backing tracks. I'm not sure whether for this type of project you could get away with doing backing tracks like that, because a lot of people in the 21st century are, in my opinion, toffee-nosed snobs. Although I quite like hearing the 707 drum machine, and I don't know what synthesizer was used on like Banyan Tree and Work Calypso. Might have been a Yamaha DX100. Not 100% sure of the full-sized DX27, but I honestly don't know. There's also and I know all the more modern backing tracks, they were done on either a Roland D70 or an MV30. Of course, I didn't know all that at the time, and in a later video I'll kind of get into what I thought was how I thought they did backing tracks. But all words printed on inner sleeve. This was how the inlay looked this was the inlay layout from 1994 to late 1995. Obviously they redesigned I actually thought it would have the same layout as the Playhouse range tapes, but and the 1996 ELC releases, but no. They were still using that layout for about a year. And yeah, so yes. Now, I was about 7 years old when I bought the first copy of this cassette. Can't remember what happened to the original copy. I think I may have either given it away or it got damaged. So, but I actually found this cassette in a charity shop with no inlay back in August 2004, and there's some signs of wear because when I got this tape back I was playing it to death, and then around about 2018 I bought another copy with a complete inlay. I think this originally had a clear plastic cassette, but the tape was damaged, so I sold that tape and put the cassette that I bought in the charity shop with that inlay. So now then, moving on 8 years, in about now, this arrived in the post, but this is Fix It. This was originally released on a cassette in 2002 for Early Learning Centre. I remember back in April 2003 I bought the cassette version of this back when I had my right arm in plaster, because I fell off a roundabout at Poppins in the St Earth playing field and broke my right arm. That wasn't very fun, but buying some of these cassettes and CDs from the Early Learning Centre meant I could recuperate. But this arrived in the post today. This is an interesting one. It's kind of based off of Bob the Builder. Steve Turner designed the artwork on this and gave it a sort of Bob the Builder, because Bob the Builder was all the rage back in the 2000s. If you're a 2000s kid, you'll remember Bob the Builder, or even if you were older you'd know about it. So yes, got a couple of Bob the Builder covers, including Mambo No. 5, but also a few tracks from songs for around, a couple of tracks from songs from around the world are on here, like Work Calypso and Click Goes the Shears. Also got Any Old Iron, which is an old musical song. A brand new version of There's a Hole in My Bucket, which at the time I actually thought was a vast improvement over the original 1992 version sung by Claire and Phil. But Phil sung Cobbler Cobbler Mend My Shoe and Teddy Trucks, which is a theme tune. And Brick on a Brick, Peter Hammers with One Hammer, finishes off with One Man Went to Mow. But these are the vocalists. Now it's a trio. Dan T. Godwin, I think he might have done some of the voicey characters on Mambo No. 5, or maybe some backing vocals, but the group of vocalists consisted of Jane, Alex and Stephanie. Jane and Stephanie, they were part of the Youth in Harmony Choir. They'd also been singing on they also sang on Click Goes the Shears on Songs from Around the World. So yes, Jane and Stephanie, I think they were kids when they started doing vocals for CRS Records, but they were much more grown up, and they were grown up now, but even though they were grown up, their voices are still recognisable from recordings from the mid-90s. And also an interesting thing here, it says thanks to Andy Mudd at the Music Factory. So both the backing tracks and the vocals were actually recorded at Music Factory. Now, me being autistic, I took the word Music Factory a bit too literally, not realising that was the name of the studio, which is actually a home studio in Andy's attic. Andy Mudd, he's quite a funny guy, got quite a good sense of humour, and he's a very talented musician. He used to do his own Billy Joel tributes, which were fantastic, and he also used to do his own versions of Gilbert O'Sullivan, and he's also a music director of many shows. He's also going to be MDing Andy the Crooner in Blackpool and the Celine Experience. That's another big thing that Andy Mudd MDs. Now, him and his musicians are all fantastic. Anyway, obviously they don't. CRS Phil Waddington doesn't use that studio anymore. But yes, and yeah. Although at one time the Music Factory was in a retail unit, was in a commercial unit in a porter cabin, but Andy has since brought the studio back home. I'm not sure whether or not the Music Factory was still in Andy's loft. At the time these were done in like 2001 or 2002. Anyway, also many of the backing tracks on here were done with a Roland Sound Canvas SC88 Pro, apart from Justin Crow's arrangements, which were done on a Korg 05RW. It even says here track 1 arranged by Justin Crow, but track 21 was also done by Justin Crow. I can easily tell which ones are done by Justin Crow. One Father Paper for the Parlour, that's another old musical song. And yeah, so as far as I know this is exactly the same as the cassette, but I do have the cassette somewhere. And yeah, so yeah, so yes, this is a bit different to my other instalments, but yes, that just arrived in the post, and I thought I'd take you on a trip to memory lane, as it was 30 years since I bought songs from around the world. So yeah, I think I will leave it off here for now. I don't know when I'll be uploading this, but bye for now, and thank you for watching.